Hi, and welcome to Stumbling Through Growth, brand new podcast that I have just started today. Um, I'm here to have real conversations with people about life's journey, and I am excited to share these conversations with you, to share the perspectives of my guests, and a little bit of my own perspectives. And I'm just really excited and happy that you're here, that you're listening or watching. I hope you enjoy the conversations. I would love to hear from you if you have thoughts about guests that you would like to see on this podcast and hear their perspectives on life and journey and growth. Growth is a messy thing. It's not linear, it's not clean, and that's why we wanted to have these conversations. So I'm, like I said, super excited that you're here, and sit back and relax and enjoy the conversation. Thanks. Okay, so here we are. Hi, this is so exciting. First ever episode of my podcast, Stumbling Through Growth. So one of my favorite things in the world is having deep conversations with people about real things. So I started this podcast, Stumbling Through Growth, to have these conversations and share them with whoever may be listening. I have a lot of really interesting people who have said yes, somehow, oddly, I don't know why, to being on this podcast with me. So I've been sort of thinking about and struggling, like, who do I want to have as my first guest? And then I started to read a book by Madi here, who was already on that yes list, and it was like an easy decision. The synergy between what I've been sort of dreaming about for this podcast and the preamble, even for the book, is just like so like right there. I wanted to just read a couple of quotes, and then you'll understand why, and then we'll get chatting. So the first one, and honestly, like, these are literally from the first 2 pages of the preamble. Like, there's so much good stuff here. But these are a couple of the things I have flagged. Many things. This is the book we'll talk about. Maybe we will. The first one: you are not broken. You are behind. You're not behind. You are not something that needs fixing. You are a work in progress, and that's a beautiful thing, which I love. Like the sentiment of that. And then this other one, which is a little longer, but your body, your skin, your hair, your voice, your laugh, your stretch marks, your dimples, your messiness, it all belongs because it is what makes you, you. Your strengths and your struggles, your joy and your rage, your trauma and your healing, your wins and your losses. Your love and your heartbreak, all of it matters. All of it deserves to exist out in the open. You don't have to be perfect because perfect is a myth. You don't have to have it all figured out because no one has it all figured out. We are all winging it in one way or another. Isn't that true? You are already enough just as you are right now, in this moment, in this breath. You are enough. And if no one has told you lately, let me be the one to say it. You are worthy of being you. So thank you for that, Madi B. And thank you for being my very first guest on my very first episode of Stumbling Through Growth.
I'm so excited. And to be clear, interesting people wanted to say yes because you're super interesting yourself.
Oh, so, thank you.
I like to give flowers where flowers are due.
I appreciate that. We don't know those things about ourselves, do we? That's always one of my things. I'm like, is it interesting? I don't know. Anyway, here we are. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, I mean, obviously there's like a million different ways this conversation can go because you're like a super fascinating person to me, and you have a lot of things to talk about and a lot of things that you talk about publicly. You have your own podcasts and your Crash Out and all the different things that you've done. Tell us like a little bit about you, not what you do necessarily, unless you relate those two things, but sort of who you are. Like, who is Madi?
Well, I am a gym rat for sure, but I am also a certified personal trainer, which I guess that's not something that I don't do, but it is so a part of this journey for me was giving myself movement as a gift and a way to start to learn how to emotionally detach from corporate America. I use the gym to do that pretty heavily. I also am an avid dog rescuer. I've never met a dog I'm scared of, which is probably a weakness. Haven't been bit in the face yet, but I have 4 dogs. I have a partner. We are both adamantly child-free, which means we are also committed to seeing as much of the world as we possibly can while we have the ability to move, which takes me back to why movement is important to me, is I want to be able to do this forever. I want to be able to move freely through the world as long as I can, as easily as I can. I am an only child, Virgo, Enneagram 8. So what that tells you is I am a little bit of a control freak, but I am a Libra cusp, which means I am open to spontaneity as long as it goes my way, which really sums me up collectively.
Oh, I love it.
I am also neurodivergent. I have diagnosed executive function and ADHD, which plays a giant part into also how I ended up this way. And I'm also biracial. My mom is white, my dad is black, and that comes with a ton of stuff. And I have spent the last, I don't know, whole life unpacking what that means and what it means to be me. And that even in itself, that question is ever evolving. Madison today, I hope, looks very different than Madison in 5 years, because I hope Madison continues to grow and stumble her way through it. Even if it's 2 steps forward, 5 steps back repeatedly, I hope Madison in 5 years looks back and is like, that one is cool, but I like this one better.
Yeah. It's so, I mean, but that's the thing, right? Like growth is that you're constantly growing, evolving, changing. I think like we're never, hopefully never static and never, okay, I'm done growing. Now let me just go enjoy life, right? There's always going to be new lessons to learn and again, it's not about fixing, like you said in in that quote that I read. It's like, you don't need to be fixed, but do you want to be, I'm not trying to paraphrase for you. Like for me, it's like, do I want to be better? Like, I think, yes, I want to be better. I want to continually evolve and grow. And I'm like constantly challenging myself to do things that scare the shit out of me, quite frankly, which is interesting. And sometimes it's always good, but sometimes not in the moment. Like, oh shit, like, am I really doing this? Did I really ask that question? Did I really put that out there? And I second guess that all the time too. But one of the things that I love about you, or at least the way that you come across, is that you are just very, I mean, obviously the book is about authenticity and empowering yourself to be yourself, right? And all of that. But like, you're very, you. And I don't even know. So let me just talk about this, right? So you have had a lot of experiences in your life, traumatic and otherwise, and you talk very openly about things. And I'm curious if you see yourself as a brave person, or if you just push yourself to do and be that way because it's how you want to live your life.
I don't think it's either. I think for me, the reason I speak so openly is because I also have a large platform, and there is privilege in that. And being able to vocalize other people's stories who don't have the same privilege that I do. I recognize that I am not one of one. I say this regularly, like nothing is an original experience, right? Like every time I see a meme about like dating on the internet, I'm like, oh, that's me. And I'm like, oh, we're all doing the same thing. Okay. And so for me, it is truly about normalizing the fact that the human experience is really messy. And it doesn't matter how much you've achieved, how much you make, who your parents are, trauma escapes none of us. And of course, that trauma is different dependent on the kinds of identities you hold, but all of us have stuff. And I think the more that we can normalize stuff, the better we start to understand the world and the humans around us.
How do you go about that? Like that sort of normalizing stuff, right? I think like to your point, you mentioned dating memes or whatever. Like I see things and oh, okay. So I'm a Libra. Like such a Libra. I'm like 100% Libra. I used to be indecisive, but now I'm not so sure. Libra. Like I'm all of it. And so I see, I think like, I certainly think the way that I think is maybe unique. And I think that's probably true of all of us, right? We're all different. We're all unique, but also like we're none of us having completely unique experience to your point, right? So you see things, you're like, I can relate to that. Like, oh, it's not just me. That's very comforting for me, often. And I think like, the way that you move in the world and the way that you are in, certainly online, and everywhere, right? That you're very, again, just very much yourself and very out there in a really, I think this is not necessarily a bad way to be out there, but for you, like, it's very clear that you're not going to let people, sort of walk all over you. And if people try to drag you, you're like, okay, yep, there you are. You're very overt about that, which I absolutely adore. And I think that that does give other people permission to sort of be that way too. Like somebody had said something to me recently about something that I was doing, and they were like, you are giving other people permission to be brave and sort of chase their dreams because of the way that you're doing that. And I'm like, I never really thought about it that way, but I think that you do that deliberately, I think.
I think so. And I also think one of the things, so there's a trend that I've seen going around on TikTok that it resonates really heavily with me, which is heal out loud because we almost lost you in silence. And I think for me, I lost so much of myself by being silent, by making myself small, by making myself palatable to please the world around me. But what did that give back to me? Nothing. And so I am in a constant reminder that like I am my oldest, longest friend. I am my longest owned piece of real estate. I have to take care of me before anything else. And if I'm constantly running from my shadow, from who I really am, from my past, from my future, how well can I truly know myself? And what does that say about the world around me, my friends, the people who I am around regularly, if when I am fully myself, they don't see me? Doesn't that just tell me those are not my people? And so truly leaning into who I am as a person, like fully, and like all of the weirdness and all of the quirkiness and the trauma has completely led the right people to me. And it is a gift when the wrong people leave.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. And I think that's true. I mean, this is not a podcast about work and work life, but that's also true for work, I think too. Like if you're, you're looking for a new job or whatever it might be, right? You want to be yourself so that the right place will find you. The same idiom as, be yourself so the right people can find you, which is, what you're talking about, which is amazing. So you talked about, a little bit about, healing out loud, because doing it in silence, we almost lost you. You've talked about in the book, and you talked about publicly as well. I think you have, as a queer Black woman, had in your earlier life sort of internalized, this is not the right representation, please tell me, but internalized, I think, anti-Blackness and internalized homophobia. You were living in a very white culture, a white supremacy culture almost, and you sort of tying yourself in knots, trying to fit into that. How did that shape your journey, and how did you break out of that sort of mindset of trying to fit into that world?
Well, it's really interesting too, because I grew up with parents who were like super liberal, wouldn't care if I was gay, also Black. But they tried to do what they thought was best for me by putting me into boarding school. And then their requirement was like, you can't go to a state school, you have to go to a private school. And again, like they thought they were just doing the right thing. So I went from boarding school, super white, straight to business school, not only super white, but super male. And in that, when you are that age, everything you were clamoring for is community. It's acceptance. It is your first dance with being yourself. It is your first dance with autonomy. And in that, you are trying to find your way. But your way is very lonely if you don't find people. But at that age, people are pretty sheltered, right? They only know what they know. And so what you end up doing is leaning towards the dominant identities to find that level of acceptance. And so I spent my formative years trying to be as white as possible. I owned an uncomfortable amount of polo shirts. Like the story I love to tell people is I was so proud, like my junior year of high school, I had this distressed baby pink polo. And when you popped the collar, it said preppy in rhinestones. Literally, I like saying it out loud makes me want to like gag now. That was like the pinnacle of my junior year. And I spent a lot of time trying to model that. So from modeling their music taste to modeling the voice, modeling the hair. If you had told me 20 years ago that I would wear my hair curly all the time, I would be guffawed. Like there is no way I would have believed you, because I didn't wear my hair curly regularly till my late 20s.
Wow.
Which, I mean, I'm old, but not that old. So it wasn't that long ago. And so I think for me, it was truly a means of trying to find my people and my circle. And then, of course, like I played sports and everyone on my team was white. But if everything in life is modeled to you as white, when it comes to success, when it comes to love, when it comes to friendship, what are you going to do? You're going to model back. The world is simply a mirror, and you mirror what reaps the most benefits, at least to you and your brain. And everything mirrored in the world around us tells you that being Black is a hindrance to your success. Now, that is rooted in white supremacy, but when you're 16, you don't know that because you can't put language to it.
Right.
And when I was 16, that wasn't something we were like talking about. I grew up in the age of Sesame Street, where it was like, if you just work harder and we all hold hands, everything will be great and good and woo, which like we know now is not the truth.
Right.
But in my early 20s, and I say this all the time, we all date someone who's like bad for us. Like everyone relates to that story in several ways. But I dated someone who was not only super abusive, emotionally, financially, physically, he was also like a super racist, But at the time, I was looking at the world around me, right? And all of my friends were getting engaged, which again, that's wild at 21. Like I realize that now, that's wild at 21. They're all divorced now. Your second marriage, I guess maybe is where it happens. I don't know. But I was like, oh my God, everyone else is in love. I'm not in love. And I was already like viewing myself through this weird lens. Like I was not super skinny. I was Black. I was thick. I was just not what was being modeled in 2006, right? Like that was not the ideal body type. We were living in the era of like size 6 is obese.
Mm.
And so when a man paid me attention, I was like, finally, which is wild now because like the idea of a man paying me attention passed. I literally have threads just to be mean to men.
I've seen that. Yes. I love it.
But so in this relationship, it was the very normal cycle, right? Like the love bombing to make me feel like I was the center of his universe, and then slowly pulling back. So that way you're spending all this time trying to get back to stage 1. Like, how do I get back to where you thought I was awesome? And it was a very slow descent into abuse. And by the time you realize that you're in it, it's too late.
Yeah.
And my mom tried to get me out. My friends tried to get me out. My friends' parents tried to get involved. And I think, the thing I learned is you have to see it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You have to see the aha moment. And that is true for everything. For when you're not getting life right, when you're in the wrong relationship, when your job isn't right for you, it does not matter how many people tell you. You have to have the aha moment. And that comes in its own time. And so when I did finally have the aha moment, we had moved to Texas. And I had the aha moment while at work. I was at work and I was like, you should log into his email and see what he's doing on email. It wasn't good. It was not good. This was in the like Craigslist back page days of the internet. So use your imagination.
Okay.
And so I called my mom and I was like, I need to move home. And she was like, what? And I was like, bitch, don't ask questions. I need to move home. I was like, I got to play it out till I can get out, but I need to move home. So over the course of like 3 weeks, I essentially planned an escape and she rented me a car. I left everything I owned in Texas. I took my 2 dogs, enough clothes to get me through, and took my little butt back home. That would be a cool end of the story, but it was not a cool end of the story because I was in my early 20s and had no idea how the internet worked. So I had posted a video on my Facebook because I had been keeping a file that was like, if I go missing, here's all this evidence that I didn't do it myself. And I had shared one of those videos because he was a very avid, this is at the beginning of Trump's campaign. So we're still a couple of years, like we're far from him being elected, but at the rise of the like Trump movement when they were using the little frog, like what was the group of people who were like, it was like MAGA plus, whatever they were. There was a name for them. I don't remember it now, but he was very much that. And there was a video of him being like, Trump's going to send you back to Africa. I'm not African. N-word, like get a job. I had a job. I made more than him, which was wild. I was 10 years younger. Like just all of these wild things for people to hear. And I was like, this is just a reminder that when people talk politics, sometimes this is actually what they're saying and they're disguising it with, well, I just want taxes, or, well, why do we have to call it marriage? But this is what they're actually saying. Again, didn't know how the internet worked. I posted that on my Facebook to my Facebook friends. And the next day, my friends called me and were like, hey, have you seen the video? The video all of a sudden had 400,000 views. And I was like, oh, I flew too close to the sun. And then it just went from there. Like it was on Occupy Democrats. It was on BET. It was on BuzzFeed. My mom was like, they're talking about your breakup on XM radio. And like, it was a whole thing. Can't recommend going viral. Wouldn't recommend it at all. But in going viral, all of the commentary was about the fact that I was Black. So imagine me, who didn't even call herself Black, was shocked, guffawed, because I was like, what do you mean I'm Black? I am biracial. My mom is white. It was giving very special snowflake energy. And it was a really, really, really public reckoning with my identity. Now, I think we should all have some kind of reckoning with our identity. I don't recommend it be public.
Not 400,000 views plus. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the messages I got were the wild front to back, but it did make me examine this thing that I had run from my entire life was truly the only thing anyone ever saw about me. And it's one of the things I say now a lot is like, I am Black first because it is the first thing you know about me. There's no hiding it. When I walk into a room, guess what?
Right.
I'm Black. You won't know I'm queer. You don't know I'm a homeowner. You don't know anything else except that I am Black. And it forced me to really think about how much of myself had I been pushing down and pushing down and pushing down for the acceptance of people who, when I really examine it, I don't even like. I didn't even like that guy. Like I did not like that man for the majority of the time we were together. But to be fair, he also like was punching me pretty regularly. So it's fair that I did not like him. So why was I trying so hard to impress him? But how much of that is true for real life? How many people are horrible to us and yet we clamor for acceptance from them?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be our bosses, our jobs, our parents. I'm very
Right.
lucky. My parents are like very lovely. When I came out as queer, my mom was like, yeah, we know. And I was like, okay, calm down. But so many of us do that. And how much time had I lost with myself?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you get to the end, right, like you're not like, oh, I wish I'd straightened my hair more. I wish I had more polos. You're like, I wish I had spent more time being present.
I'm so glad I didn't wear a polo today, by the way. I almost did.
I wouldn't have judged you.
I would have judged me. I would have judged me. I would have
used a different. Listen, I could have been like my khaki pants.
That's hilarious.
My loafers. There were options.
God. Okay.
But how many of us wish we had spent more time being present? And in order to actually be present, you have to be there, not your representative, not the fake version of you that.
Right.
I always tell people it's like the episode of SpongeBob where he's like really smooth and has like no pores. Like he's not a sponge. He's just like a little round bullet. And I think a lot of us do that to ourselves. We smooth ourselves out to be prettier, to be more accepted. But that is not the real you. And the real people in your life want the real you. And if they don't want the real you, they are not your real people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. Like, I think that having, you know, as a queer woman myself, coming out is like it's a daily thing, right? Anyway, people think it's like a one and done. It's not. Every time, you know, my wife and I go check into a new hotel or whatever, like you're constantly coming out in some way, shape, or form. But you talked about, you know, like my parents were great too. But I think, yeah, like a lot of people have that sort of a parent in their lives that was the person who they are constantly trying to prove themselves to. I didn't have that either, which is great. My mother, actually, it was so funny when I came out to my mother, because I came out later in life to her. And she said recently, well, I say recently, in the last couple of years, actually, like after you told me that, like I loved you more because I knew that your life was probably had been harder than others, if you know that weren't gay or whatever. And I just it was just so sweet. Like my mother went, you know, gay marriage or equal marriage, I should say, in Ireland, like was the first country in the world to ratify equal marriage by popular vote. 30 years ago, it was a criminal offense to be gay. Actually, 40 years ago now, probably it was a criminal offense to be gay in Ireland. And like 30 years after that, they were the first country to ratify equal marriage by popular vote, which was awesome. But like my mother was out there, you know, protesting and handing out flyers at church and all, like doing all this stuff in service of equal marriage, just because I'm over here in the US, she's in Ireland, but, you know, because I was her child and that was part of my life and she wanted to do that for me, even though it wouldn't necessarily benefit me, which is just awesome. So it's great to have really good, solid parents and good role models. But having that, like all of what you described, which is horrifying, and then having it be so incredibly public, it's equally horrifying. But I wonder, did that sort of thrust you into, or give you the tools, maybe thrusting you into is probably the wrong way to describe it. But like I was listening earlier, you were doing your own podcast with Taryn Talley, and you were talking about, somebody had asked a question about how do you let you have insults that come at you that are very personal, or certainly about your identity, both of you. And how do you not like absorb that, or how do you let it roll off? And you were just like, I don't, it doesn't touch me. And I wonder how, if that experience that you had with that abusive relationship that you're in, do you think that helped shape that for you? Not that I obviously recommend getting into something like that to develop that tough skin, but do you think that experience, that like going viral in that moment, sort of helped you develop the tools to not have those things touch you the way they might touch others?
I think it's a yes and, but I think so much of that is actually because, so the thing about when you have internalized bullshit, right? Whether it is racism or homophobia or whatever, that means you think all those terrible things about you, but that means that you think of them about the world around you. And I am not envious of that version of me. And so now when people come and insult me about my identity, I recognize where they are. And I'm not envious of that journey. I've done that journey. I'm not envious of where they are today. And why would I be offended by someone whose life that I don't want to step into?
Yeah.
And like I said it then, I'm a cutie patootie. Like,
right.
Imagine not liking me. Wild.
Why?
But for me, that's what it is. Like, I recognize, and again, I say this all the time, I am not faulting them for where they're at their journey, because again, it is a different process, a different timeline for everyone. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't excuse the harm that you cause. my harm is not excused because I've learned and I've done better. But what I recognize is people like that have a long way to go. And when you do not like the world around you, you probably don't like yourself so much either.
Yeah.
And so part of me actually feels a lot of empathy for them because it's not a lovely place to be in. And at the end of the day, I cannot give strangers on the internet that kind of weight.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really fair. I haven't had the experience necessarily, certainly nothing even close to what you go through, on a regular with people coming at you. And a part of me is sort of like tentative in some ways about being more overt publicly or online about things because I don't want to draw that attention because I'm not quite sure how I would handle it, to be honest. I don't think I would be as, I think I would have the grace that you have, what you were just saying about like where people are and understanding like that. They're coming from a place of not understanding or even liking their own worlds or the worlds around them. And I totally respect and get that. But at the same time, I don't think I would be as sort of impenetrable in a way of like being able to sort of say, this isn't going to touch me because I know how sensitive I can be around things. And so that's just something. And I'm not suggesting that you're hardened at all. I know that you're not, but like, I feel like I would have to harden myself to deal with that. And I don't want to be that. Like, I don't want to let the world harden me, because I think like there's so much going on right now that could harden any heart, no matter how soft and empathetic. But I don't want to let that happen.
No, I think for me it's more, and to be fair, like I give people grace, but not without a good drag. Like I love
100%.
to make sure that you think about this the next time you do this to another Black woman. But that being said, I just think as someone who has a large following, you don't have a choice but to figure out how to not feel it. Because like I say this all the time, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how hot you are. Some man on the internet is coming to your comments to call you fat and ugly. Probably both at the same time. It's unavoidable. It doesn't matter what kind of content you make. It doesn't matter if you are, again, the cutest patootie on the planet. Like some man is going to come tell you that you're fat and ugly because he was taught that the worst thing a woman can be is undesirable to men. And there's no escaping it if you have a large platform. And I have like 200,000 across all my platforms. And regularly men get wild in my comments. And I have to remember, like, why do I care if you think I'm ugly? I don't even know you. You don't even have a photo. But like, was I planning on going on a date with you? No, I recognize that like not the entire world is going to think I'm hot. The whole plan is to find someone that thinks I'm hot and I think they're hot and like a good person and we build a life together. None of that has anything to do with strangers on the internet.
Right.
It's like you have to just remind yourself that like none of this makes sense. None of it makes sense. And logically, it doesn't make sense to care about people who don't have profile pictures.
That's just so true because like, what are you hiding? Seriously, dude, like what,
Oh, like you're so proud of what you're saying, but not enough to see your face. It's like when we talk about like all of the like ICE, you're so proud of what you're doing, but you're wearing a mask. That's so interesting.
Exactly.
Me.
Yeah. It's a little hypocrisy there, maybe. Yeah.
A little bit.
Just a smidge, just a wee bit. Something you just mentioned reminded me, actually, I wanted to make sure to touch on. So there's one more quote that you had that I pulled out of, again, I think this might have been actually from the book, but there's so much good stuff just even in the preamble. Anyway, I want to just see if we could talk about this for a second because you touched on it a tiny bit. So this is the quote. Coming to terms with the trauma you have caused is harder than learning how to cope with your own experienced trauma. That is so real. Like, I'm sure, like, we have all caused some sort of trauma for people over the course of our lives. I know that I certainly have. And I'm sure there's ways that I'm not even aware of that have done it. And I don't think we can travel, like, through life's journey and not, cause some harm or trauma, or angst for others. Like, there's one particular memory that I have from my high school days that high school in Ireland was different from here, but there still were cliques. Like, there was still little groups. And I was sort of, like, on the edges of all of them. I had a core group of friends, but it wasn't like we were, like, this clique and then there was like the cool kids and the sports kids and the math nerds. Like it wasn't quite like that, but there were definitely defined groups of people. And there was one person who I really admire, but at the time when we were in school, people would kind of, make fun of her and I didn't stand up for her. And I participated, not very overtly, but it's certainly in ways that I'm not proud of. And so, like, that's just something I wish I could go back and change. Like, there's some, like, just you wish that you could go back and do something differently because, like, this version of me would be absolutely all over everybody for for being like making fun. They were making fun of her because of the things that she liked, but like she was fantastic at the things that she liked, and they just weren't the cool things that other people, the things that other people thought were cool. And so, like, I wish I could go back and do something different. I have reached out since and said, like, I'm really sorry that I didn't, do more and stand up for you and not participate. But again, maybe it's a small T trauma. I don't know how it was for her, but anyway, my point with all of that is like you talked about that, and like how does that show up for you? Like that sort of idea of dealing with the trauma that you might have caused.
So I think for me, like I have to remember I was doing what I could with the tools I had in my toolbox at that time. And holding resentment towards myself does not benefit anyone. It actually keeps me from moving fully into myself. If I run from my shadow and I'm scared to look it in the eye and acknowledge those parts of myself, I can't move forward. I do try to make amends when I have the opportunity. Like my favorite example is, so when I got out of my abusive relationship, the next person I dated, it wasn't great, right? Because I was so used to being in this like cycle of highs and lows that when there were no highs and lows, I was like a menace. I was a menace. And I ended up breaking up with him over like he ate my leftover sandwich. Like it was just like silly. And I was not kind and I was not super nice. And I felt bad about it for years. And he was like the nicest human being. Like we definitely wouldn't have worked out long term, but like there was nothing bad to be said about him. I moved to Texas for like 10 years and I come back, I join a gym and he's like the first person I see at the gym. And I was like, oh my God, great. And so I actually worked up the courage. A couple weeks later, he was on the treadmill and I like got on the treadmill next to him and I was like, hey, could we grab some coffee? I'm sure this is really awkward. So sorry. We ended up grabbing a coffee a couple weeks later and I was just like, hey, I want to be really honest. Like that version of me is not this version of me. And I'm really sorry for whatever you've taken into your future relationships because of how I acted. And I was like, I don't want you to ever think it was you. It was certainly me. And he responded that it was really helpful for him to know that because it's helpful for him moving forward in his own marriage. And so I do try to make amends where I have the opportunity to, and where I don't, I have to understand that I am not a bad person because I've caused harm. We are sold this bullshit idea that being a good person or being a bad person is a binary. When in actuality, we're all just humans who do good and bad things for the rest of our lives. The worst person you know has a bunch of people that love them.
Yeah.
The best person you know has a bunch of people that hate them.
Yep.
And that is just how the cookie crumbles. Like Donald Trump has a bunch of people who love him. A bunch. A weird amount, actually. And to me, is my arch nemesis. So what I try to remind people of is, yes, we all want to be better, but the only way we can actually be better is by acknowledging the times that you thought you were a bad person. Because how can you learn to do better if you choose to ignore that part of you? Because it is very easy to get defensive and say, no, I didn't mean it like that. I can't be racist. I have a black husband. Yeah. Or whatever the thing may be.
Right.
Instead of actually examining where you maybe dropped the ball.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about that, like, not all people get all hung up on, like, well, it's not all men and it's not all, black people and it's not all white people. Nobody's ever saying, like, it's all of the people all of the time, right? It's like, I think the way that I think about that is, like, if you're getting defensive about, like, people saying, like, white women are doing XYZ, and you're like, well, not me. It's like, okay, well, why, like, don't get defensive about it. Like, what is that triggering for you?
Yep.
Like I do that. Like I occasionally get triggered by that, very, very rarely, but not triggered by it, but want to sort of defend. And I'm like, no, you know what? Like, that's not, like, I know better now, but like, even a couple of years ago, I might've been like, well, is that fair? It's like, no, but like, that's not the point. The point is not that anybody is saying that every single person of fill in the blank demographic is, a bad person. It's just that there is bad behavior that happens in the name of a lot of people.
Yep. And it's systemic, right? Like, obviously,
right.
We've all been having this larger conversation about the 62 million.
Right.
And I've gotten a lot of comments that it's like, it's not all men. And, it's like racism. It is not actually an individual issue and it doesn't benefit us to solve it at the individual level. It has to be solved at the systemic level.
Yep.
And that is why men who are not the problem aren't mad when you say men. They're like,
exactly.
They're like, not me, because I stand up to my friends. I tell my friends when they're wrong. I stand 10 toes down for women. So I'm not offended by this. Every time a man is in my comments being offended or arguing with me, I'm like, you're just telling us all you're not safe.
Yeah.
That's all. And that's fine. I'm actually happy for you to do that. I think more of you should tell us out loud. that you're not safe.
Yeah, really. You're telling on yourselves. Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do more. So you mentioned obviously, the abusive relationship that you were in, and then, like one of the things I wanted to try to get out in this podcast, not just this episode, but just this series of conversations is that, and the reason I call it stumbling through growth and not like thriving through growth or whatever, right, is that growth is messy. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not, we don't go through a thing and then we learned the lesson and now we're good. We're never going to deal with that again, or we're never going to step into something again or experience the same thing again or something similar. And I think, you had that relationship, that abusive relationship that you were in all those years ago. And then you found yourself more recently, not your current relationship, but a prior relationship in another kind of certainly less than ideal situation.
Yep.
I bring it up not to say, you should know better. Obviously that would not be the purpose of this, but I bring it up to say, I think sometimes what happens in those situations, and I know this is not you, this is not what happened with you, but I think sometimes people do get to a point where they're like, oh, it must be me. Because like, I thought I learned, like I thought I would never be in a similar situation to this again. And now I find myself here. I must be the problem. I don't deserve any better. And then they just stay. And I know that's not what you did, but I just wanted to kind of make that point. But I think for people in those types of situations, like it's not you, it is them. Like, right. And I think to your point, you have to know, you have to see it yourself. You have to have that aha moment yourself. Like, how do, like find, like listen to the people around you who are giving you advice around that. Right. Obviously. But you found yourself in another, I will say again, less than ideal relationship, but you recognized that and pulled yourself out, basically.
I mean, and it's funny because that's not even, he pulled himself out and then tried to like, as soon as he did it, I was like, okay. But it was partly in the way that he did it. So to be transparent, my last tumultuous relationship, he really struggled with addiction. And I recognized that addiction is a disease, right? Like I have a parent, my biological dad struggled with addiction when I was younger. And I think for him, he didn't know how to be himself without a substance. And again, that is its own trauma thing, right? Like, but when it ended, we had been on vacation with both of our parents, or well, my mom and his mom, and he ripped like 8 double shots of JMO at the airport. 8 double shots of JMO, I would have been passed out somewhere.
Right.
And mind you, he's chasing his JMOs with beers. So however many amounts of liquor that is. And we get on the plane and I asked like a very simple question. I was like, do you still want to sleep at your mom's house tonight? Or do you want me to like rally and I'll drive home so that way you can like sleep in the bed and like sleep this off, but I have to work in the morning. And when I tell you, you would have thought that I told him he was the worst person I ever met. He starts screaming. Mind you, I'm in the middle seat on the airplane. We were on the airplane. And his mom's on one side of me, he's on the other. And he's screaming about how being with me makes him want to kill himself. And I'm just the worst person he's ever met. And I don't let him make any decisions. And I just want him to be like my slave. And I was like, you don't work. What do you mean? I was like, I pay all the bills. You don't work. I don't like, and you're screaming. And so I had to get to go to the bathroom. And the couple behind me gave me that like face that like, and I was like, I get it. And so it was just like, it unlocked for me that like, this is never going to change.
Yeah.
Because often as you say you're going to go to treatment, or as often as you say you're going to get your shit together and stop crashing out, you're not going to. And I think he wanted to do that thing where he leaves and comes back because it was an excuse to go on a bender. And I was just like a no on the coming back piece. To this day, I have not responded to he emailed me as recently as April. He emailed my business account and was like, can I set up a consultation to get back in your life? No, you cannot. But I think one of the things I did have a lot of conversations with my therapist about, like, how did I end up back in a situation that was so similar?
Right.
Because although he wasn't physically abusive, he did say things to me that were awful that I didn't realize at the time were awful, because he was like, well, wouldn't you want your partner to know if you, like, wouldn't you want your partner to tell you if they thought you were getting fat? And now, no, don't tell me that.
Right.
Don't tell me that. And so I spent a lot of time with my therapist being like, how did I not connect the dots? But what I've realized now is like, I love really big. And I don't fault myself for that. And I'm going to continue to love really big because all of that comes back to me in its own way. And I don't regret giving someone that love who very clearly needed it. But I am much better at healing myself now because I know the way that he treated me is not a reflection of me. So if I hadn't gone through that first relationship, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I wouldn't have been able to separate the two.
Right.
And so in lots of ways, that relationship was a gift to my identity, to my ability to navigate situations like this. And even in a lot of ways, this situation was a gift because it was a reminder that like, this is not what I want in partnership.
Yeah.
What I want in partnership is someone who doesn't need me. They want to be around me because they truly find that my presence is an additive to their life. They don't need me to fund them.
Yeah. I love
And like,
that.
there's a whole trauma thing, right? Like, it was nice to feel needed because in an abandonment response, like, you're like, well, they can't leave. And so I've had to unpack that and unlearn that. And it's really interesting to be in a partnership that's incredibly independent. And we are very independent people apart from one another. And we have our own hobbies and like we are completely different personality types. And it works because we each have our own lives and they complement one another.
Yeah. I think that's really fascinating what you just said about being needed, because I think that a lot of people want to be needed, right? There's some soothing in that or some comfort in that somehow. And like in, wanting to be needed. I think personally, anyway, that can become, it becomes a bit of a crutch, but then it also becomes irritating. Like, I think, you know what I mean, though? Like, I think this is, anyway, personally for me, like, I used to be very drawn to people that needed some kind of help, support, whatever. And I still am. And I love to help people. Like, I love to like try to support and uplift people as much as I possibly can. At the same time, I think if you're in a relationship with somebody, if it's like a, partnership with somebody and that it becomes the dominant structure or like reason for being, it kind of becomes like, I feel like, okay, like I will help you. Can I help you be better, do better, right? Not fix you, but like, can I help you be better, do better? Then do that. Like, don't, you know what I mean? Like then I get annoyed if somebody doesn't like ultimately, grow and get better, right? Again, not about fixing somebody, but like if you want somebody to help support you in XYZ, whatever it is, then it's like going to therapy and never learning anything. Like if you don't want to, why are you doing it? Like why are you asking for help and support if not to grow? Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I'm even making sense, but yeah.
No, you are. And I also think like for me, like I'm a chronic fixer. Like I am a project planner, project manager kind of girl. And so for me, in people like that, there is something to be said about like, oh, what if I can give them this life they've never imagined and they'll feel like they're capable of this thing. It's the same, like I do it at work too, right? Like I want you to feel like you are so capable of doing everything that I've had to like check myself to be like, people have to want it too.
Yes.
You cannot want sobriety. You cannot want success. You cannot want peace or stability for someone who is not interested in it themselves, because guess what? All they end up doing is resenting you for wanting it for them, and they don't want it.
Right. And then you resent them for not doing it, right? So it's
like he would tell me all the time, he was like, you're just boring. Everyone does drugs. And I was like, I don't think so.
No.
But I was questioning myself, like, am I boring?
Yeah.
Like, I remember now, like one time with my partner, when we first started dating, he like made a joke about me being boring and I immediately started sobbing. And he was like, oh no, what did I do? But like, I didn't even realize like how much I had internalized the fact that he called me boring. And again, like my partner was like joking because I was like, I don't want to go out tonight.
Right.
But it was something that I really thought about a lot. I was like, damn, am I boring because I don't party and I like don't do drugs? Which like looking back now, I was like, I can't believe that like you had a question about that. Yeah. Like that's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think it's so funny because we all have triggers, right? I know a lot of people have a trigger around like disappointment or whatever, like, and I'm like, I am not a person who cries a lot at all, but for some reason, like, if you like come at me about my work, why is this the thing that makes me cry? I don't know what that is. I'll figure it out someday. One of the things, again, there's so many reasons why I wanted to talk to you, but I mentioned earlier that I just love how you live your life out loud, unapologetically, like just being you. I've been doing better at that, certainly myself, over the last couple of years. And, I've had this whole story journey that I've been on for the last couple of years, which we don't have time for today. But I do still second guess myself sometimes. Like there's definitely times where like I'm an overthinker. And I'll do something or say even something silly. There's something I did this morning and I'm like, oh my God, should I have done that? Should I have sent it? Can I take it back? Should I have not? I don't know. What should I do? Should I, all of that kind of like overthinking that happens. And I wonder, do you ever second guess or have those feelings of doubt after you've put something out there into the world or online or whatever?
I don't necessarily think that, but I do think that coming out of being in a couple of relationships where again, one was more than a decade ago, but it made me trust my gut less. And that's actually like something I've worked on heavily in therapy, is trusting my own instinct and my
Yep.
gut more, but also knowing the difference between when my gut is my gut or when my brain is having a trauma response.
Yep.
And I actually that those have been really hard for me to differentiate between. And even now, they're still really hard for me to differentiate between.
Yeah.
Because I am always so, like, it's easy to be on edge and expect the shoe to drop because you've been used to the shoe dropping at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, especially more than ever, like there's so much going on. But
Yep.
I think that, one of the things that I am very aware of is that the response that a lot of people are having about what's happening right now in this country is like there's a lot of other people from different, backgrounds or demographics that are like, we've been here, like, we've been through, obviously slavery and Jim Crow and colonization and like all of the things that have happened to other people. And that, now there's a lot of demographics of people that look more like me going, hey, this is not, and we're like, yeah, because we've all been here. We've been at this party for a long time, right? So I don't want to say like it's all new, but it's new for some people. And something you said earlier on the call that you had with Taryn just actually made me laugh out loud, that you are like, your imposter syndrome is like completely gone because of like, if, our current occupant of the White House is qualified to do that job, then, we are certainly each and every one of us qualified for any of the things. And there's no, not that it's just about work, but you know what I mean? I just thought that was funny. Like, let me, tell me what was going on there.
Well, I say this all the time. Like, I am really good at what I do. Imagine how successful I would be if I was this good and a white guy.
Right.
Possibilities are endless. I'd probably have a plane, but I don't. I don't have a plane because I am not a white guy. But imagine if I had even just the confidence of a white guy. A white guy who didn't know what he was doing.
Right. What's that people say? Give me the confidence of a mediocre white guy.
Yeah. Give me a little, like a smidge of that. We'll be good.
Smidge. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, and again, it's not all guys, like, and not all white guys. It's certainly like, but I think that there is it's so funny because I'm going to just tilt into work world for a minute. Like in the work that I do around diversity, equity, inclusion, there's some perception or some thought around, people thinking like, well, if, we're giving opportunities to, all these people who haven't had opportunities before, then there's nothing left for me if I'm like, the sort of cisgendered straight white guy in the company. There's an assumption in that statement that it was yours to begin with or yours to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just something I think it's an important thing for all of us to think about and frame. It's like there shouldn't be an expectation that it belonged to any opportunity or anything belonged to any one person or any one demographic, and that we're just trying to like shoehorn other people into it. It's like we should be open to the idea that everybody has potential, everybody should have the opportunities, everybody has, like you said, I'm really good at what I do. It's like, yeah, I think I'm really good at what I do too. Do I get the opportunities that I want? No, not all the time.
Well, I think in my personal opinion, so a lot of these men specifically think that they won their roles through meritocracy, when in actuality, they won their role through dominant identity. We live in a world that convinces us that it's built on meritocracy, but it's actually built on mediocrity. And so when you tell someone that you might be better than them, smarter than them, they immediately panic because they start to recognize their own faults, their own gaps, and that maybe I am here because I am just winging it. I recently worked with an organization who they were hiring for a head of people, and they hired a white guy who was an intern in 2021. And when I asked about why, they were like, well, he has an MBA. And I was like, okay, well, he's getting his MBA. And I was like, lots of people already have an MBA. And so a lot of men are just given these jobs, right? And again, not saying that he's bad at it, but like just basic JD knowledge is head of people is 10 years experience, approximately.
Right.
In the HR.
Yeah.
He had 7 seconds. And so for a lot of these people, it's like a rat being backed into a corner. What do? They chew their way out. And so a lot of people who are so resistant to DEI is because they recognize that it is a risk to their job, not because we are slotting in people who are less qualified. We are finally recognizing that other people are more qualified.
Right. The funniest thing about that is if DEI were really if we were doing the work properly, actually we would be a meritocracy. Like that's the goal. The goal is that actually, yes, everybody who deserves the opportunity can have the opportunity. Yeah, it's just that's a whole other that is a whole other conversation. Um, Talk to me a little bit about community. You mentioned community earlier, like community and like finding your people. Like um what has your experience been around that? Like obviously being your authentic self and having just people sort of coming to you. But like you and I connected on in LinkedIn somewhere, like I don't know how many years, probably like 7, 8, however many years ago. And then somehow we ended up having a conversation about what your favorite Thai restaurant was, which is down the street from me. But like that's like a little connection, right? That's like a little
Mhm.
human connection that you can like it doesn't have to be a big thing, right? But just talk to me a little bit about community and what it means.
So I will say, I think having an online platform is super bizarre because lots of people consider me their friends, and I'm like, I don't know who you are.
Right.
So the parasocial relationship is really interesting to me. I, however, am actually, despite being really loud and on the internet, I'm actually pretty opposite in real life. I'm pretty introverted. I like to stay home. I like to drive incredibly far for a gym or a good coffee. But the people who find me, I will go to the ends of the earth for. The people who see me and I see them, I will go to the ends of the earth for.
Right.
Because those are the same people that when I am not in my true self will call me out on it. Those are the same people who, when I am messing up, will call me out on it. Friendship isn't frictionless. Community isn't frictionless. And I think a lot of us want to live in these worlds where we are just constantly, yes, 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 you're great. Oh my gosh. But that isn't true friendship. That's like adoration. And adoration often can also be envy. And I don't want people who adore me or who are envious of me. I want people who really want me to be better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that for me is what community looks like. And community, I also want to say, is I want everyone to have an experience that is safe and beautiful and wonderful. And it does not mean that I actually have to like you. So there are tons of people who I'm in community with who I'm not trying to hang out with on a Saturday night. But
Right.
I'm doing this work because I believe in the betterment of their lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of us would move the world forward faster if we stopped thinking that in order for us to go to bat for people or to be in community with people, we also have to be friends with them.
I love that. Yeah. And I think too that like I have this notion, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I think most people want the same things. Like people want security. They want to be loved in some way, shape, or form. They want to be valued, to be heard, to be seen. And I don't mean seen in a platform kind of way, but to be seen for who they actually are as a human being. Like that to me, the greatest gift anybody could ever give to me is to see me for who I am. That's
Yep.
the biggest thing that anybody could ever do for me. And so I think most people, regardless of where they are in the political spectrum, what background they have, I think that most people want those things. Is that
Yeah, and I would even go as far to say as like when we talk about being safe spaces or being inclusive, I actually think if we take out the politicized like fear mongering, the majority of people want to be good friends, good coworkers, good partners, good leaders, and they get really hung up on the nuances
yeah,
because what they're fed in media. I think the majority of people, barring like people who have personality like mood disorders like sociopathy, want to be good
mm-hmm,
to the people around them.
yeah,
I think so much of what holds us back is our ego and our ability to be like, oh, you know what? I got that wrong.
100%. Like I think that's one of the criteria for me for being in the work of DEI. And I know this is not about DEI, but it's all part of it, right? I think one of the criteria for that has to be you have to be willing to be wrong.
Yep. I'm wrong all the time.
Oh, I'm wrong
All the
all the
time.
time. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. We can just keep talking forever. But I at some point I have to give you your day back. And I'm just curious, is there anything before we close, is there anything that you wanted to share that we didn't talk about or anything that you wanted me to ask you that I didn't ask you or any sort of parting words that you can share to just round us out?
You know, the reason that I wrote my book was kind of on what we just talked about. Everyone wants to be a safe space for the people in their world around them because
Yeah.
the people in the world around us are the most important things, the most important pieces of our universe. But I think we forget in wanting to be a safe space for everyone. None of that can happen if we are not at first a safe space for ourselves. And that requires spending lots of time with yourself. I said this at the beginning. You are your longest owned piece of real estate. I own a house from the 1950s. I've had to look in every corner of that bad boy to make sure it stays standing.
Yeah.
You have to do the same with yourself, even when those parts are hard to look at, even when the conversations are uncomfortable, even when it means you're examining not just the behaviors of you, but the behaviors of your parents, of your grandparents, the things that you learned in your own home growing up. You will be better for the world around you when you start to be kinder to yourself and all of the past versions of you, even the versions that wore rhinestone polo shirts.
With preppy?
Preppy.
So good. And I think that's what this is about, right? It's also about that it's a continual journey. It's not like I've figured out that XYZ, this is the experience I had and this is why, and I'm never going to have to deal with that again. It's going to come back.
Yep.
It's a journey constantly. I mean, I know I'm not, this is not what we're doing, but I'm going to do this anyway. So this is Madison's book. Let them see you. Madi B on screen, Madison Butler on the title page. It's a fabulous read, and you can find it in your regular bookstores. I will share your podcast links and your other socials and so forth in the show notes. Of course. Thank you for being my first guest. I'm so excited.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
This was fun. This is a solid way to end my day.
Oh, good. I know. This is like the Friday afternoon. Is this what you want to be doing? I'm glad that the answer is yes. Okay. Awesome.
And now I'm going to eat some pasta.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. What's on the pasta? Like what's?
Spicy vodka and chicken sausages.
Okay. I can go along with that.
It's not quite pad thai, but it'll do.
Oh, there you go. Right. Not quite crispy pad thai from that unnamed restaurant that we're not going to say the name of because they're not paying us to do that.
We're not doing free advertising.
We're not doing free advertising. So I want to just say final thank you to Madi B for being my first guest, to all of you for tuning in and for staying all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you have any thoughts of anybody that you would like to see as a guest, I would love to hear from you. Let me know. Or if you have any thoughts, comments, please reach out. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.